your questions ready for the live fishing call-in show. For the next hour, we have a panel of guests to answer all of your questions. 1-800-944-4664. The live Kentucky Afield fishing call-in show starts right now. More Kentucky Afield is available at your fingertips. Whether by smartphone or desktop, you'll find extra tips, photos, even behind-the-scenes video on our social media pages. Join the conversation and stay in the woods or on the water longer when you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Simply search Kentucky Afield on your favorite app.
Yeah, we got one. Sweet.
Yeah, muskrat?
Yeah.
Good job.
What do you know about that, man? That's a good fish, man.
Nice male smallmouth. Healthy, pretty color.
Cody, here. Find us one more good pheasant, Cody.
As biologists, we catch ducks and we place bands on them.
And it's just a really excellent place to see cottonmouths.
I like it.
What do you think? Like bull.
That was pretty fun.
Good evening. Welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm your host, Chad Miles, and tonight you've reached our 2016 Spring Fishing Call-In Show. To ask a question, you can reach us at 1-800-944-4664. Here with me tonight answering your questions is Jeff Ross. He's Assistant Director of the Fishery Division, and John Williams, who's a Regional Biologist with the Fishery Division. All of our law enforcement questions we're going to direct to Rufus Cravens, who's Sergeant and Conservation Officer. Answering our phones today, we have the EKU Bass Fishing Club. To learn more about the EKU's fishing team, log on to their Facebook page at EKU Bass Fishing. Let's get started with our questions right now. We've got a couple already in. Frank from Henry County wants to know if there's any good red air fishing lakes near the Henry County area.
That's a good question, Chad.
We'll get back.
Off with one of those, huh?
We'll get back to that here in just a second. Sarah in Bracken County, does the department offer any female classes to teach women how to fish? And are there any specific programs in this state? And I can take that if you don't have it. There's the BOW.
BOW. Right. And then they're starting up a new mentor program where people, young adults, people that already have a fishing license, are going to focus on them, and they're going to offer them across the state. And I think they're starting one up in Lexington pretty quick here, but that'll be another option for women to take those classes. It's set up for people who haven't fished before.
And our Becoming an Outdoor Woman program is wildly successful. You can actually call our Department of Fish and Wildlife at 1-800-858-1549 and ask for more information on that. Next, we have Frank from Kenton County. What are the new sport fish regulations on catfish on the Ohio River?
All right, those came in last year, and it's for sport fishermen across the whole Ohio River. It's one flathead over 35, one blue over 35, and one channel over 28. So you can get one of each, so you can have three.
Okay.
And then you can have as many as you want below those sizes.
Okay. And no new regulations on channel catfish, correct?
Just the one over 28.
Okay. Steve in Rowan County, where can I find the cave run habitat sites?
They're on our website, right? At
yeah.
fw.ky.gov.
Yeah, and there's actually a site specific for cave run, and there's a map, and then they can also, for any of our lakes, go to where to fishing or where to fish, and click on the lake, and it'll have a habitat link, and it'll provide you all the habitat GPS coordinates for most of our sites.
I've actually used that. It's very handy. Jim from Trapp, Kentucky, what license is required to bow fish?
To bow fish, it's a fishing license is required. A hunting license will not suffice for bow fishing, so it's a fishing license.
And talk real quick about, frog gigging season's coming in. Talk about what licenses are required for that.
Sure. Frog gigging comes in the third Friday, noon on the third Friday in May, which will be the 20th, May 20th. Mm-hmm. If you take frogs by bow and arrow or gun, a hunting license is required. If you take them by line and pole, a fishing license is required. And if you take them by hand or by gig, then either a hunting license or a fishing license will suffice.
All right, thank you. Steve from Bell County. I hear there are new walleye regulations on certain water bodies.
That's true. We do have new walleye regulations on our native walleye fisheries. It's a 18 to 26 inch protected slot limit, 2 fish creel limit. And the idea behind these is to protect our native walleyes. We're trying to restore them in our most of the streams and some lakes in the state. The water bodies that's included in that would be, for instance, Upper Cumberland River above Cumberland Falls, Upper Kentucky River above Lock and Dam 14, Wood Creek Lake, Martins Fork Lake, Barren River Lake, and the Barren River above and below the lake.
Levice
Fork, yeah.
Fish Trap.
And these are our native Rockcastle strain walleye,
Right.
correct?
It's we've propagated the Rockcastle strain and stocked them in several water bodies, and those are protected now.
Great. Joe from Madison County, heard about the Trophy Bass Program. How many bass have you received?
We have received 4. 3 were from Fish Pond, and we're not taking more from Fish Pond because it's only 30 acres, but thanks to everybody that got those. And then we got 1 from Greenbow. The program is where we're going to use these big bass as broodstock in the hatchery to try to produce young that have a better chance of growing to a bigger size. So we're going to take fish through May, and then we'll knock it back off because the water temperatures start getting too warm. And then next fall, I think around February, we'll start taking fish again. So if people catch fish, female over 8 or a male over 6, give us a call and we'll take them to the hatchery and use them to spawn.
And that's a great way to increase the size of the broodstock you're using, correct? All right, Daniel from Knox County, what is the deal with the low water at Cedar Creek Lake this spring?
I've had several calls on Cedar Creek Lake. Actually, last fall we started a drawdown, and the reason for the drawdown was trying to control some of the abundant vegetation there, keeping it from getting out of control, and also to expose the bluegill to more bass predation. And we started the drawdown in November, and we closed the valve actually in early March. And at that time, we didn't hardly have any rain, and just took it forever to fill back up. But I was there Thursday, and it is full now, and a little bit muddy and murky in areas. But we finally got the lake full this spring.
And that should really help. We were there, with the Kentucky Field was there, and we caught some fish. We've been hearing about a lot of really good fish coming out of the lake.
Yeah, Cedar Creek's great for bass.
Joe from McLean County, what combination of bass create a hybrid striped bass?
It'd be the white bass and a striped bass. And in the hatcheries, we typically use female white bass and male striped bass. But we are doing a research project to look at the other cross to see if they might do a little bit better. So, way back when, we used to use those, and a lot of our trophy fish and state record were from that cross. So we're looking back at that one again.
All right, Ruby from Spencer County, what is the size limit of a Kentucky spotted bass?
There is no size limit on a Kentucky spotted bass.
You still have to adhere to the creel numbers.
The creel, right, 6. It would be 6 bass a day.
Jessica from Webster County, what is a rockfish, and do we have them in Kentucky?
Well, striped bass are also called rockfish, so or stripers, another name for them. Then we also have a smaller sunfish in streams called a rock bass.
But rockfish is the
striper, big stripers, yeah.
Ruthie from Shelby County, where can I find information on Finn's Lakes, and when are they stocked?
We have on our website, if you go to fish and then where to fish, there's a Finn's link, and it'll have an interactive map of where every lake is. And I talked to the guy that manages the Finn's Lakes, Dane Balsman, and I think they're going to be stocking catfish again the week of May 23rd, so they're coming pretty soon.
They get a lot of pressure, but we put a lot of fish in.
They'll get them again in August, and then we'll do trout later on in the fall.
Great. Mike in Lincoln County, will white bass reintroduced to Green River Lake affect the crappie?
I don't think so. That was a species that's been in there for a long time, and they disappeared recently, but it looks like they're starting to take again, so we're hoping that maybe they'll reappear, and they shouldn't be a problem for the crappie.
Calvin from Fayette County, what are the regulations regarding using fish attractors in public waters? I guess it's an individual wanting to put out their own fish attractor.
I would think it'd depend on the lake. You know, if it's a Corps of Engineer lake or something like that, you would have to contact them, you know, as far as whether or not you're able to actually put fish attractors in there. A lot of them, and for like the Kentucky River, you would have to get in contact with the Kentucky River Authority. A lot of those lakes actually have, you know, some kind of law or regulation against putting attractors and stuff in there.
Okay. And we put quite a few in, and we do list those.
The department does, correct.
Eric from Marion County, how is the restocking effort of white bass in Green River Lake?
Well, we kind of mentioned that. It didn't look like it was going to take hold, but recently I know some guys that went fishing and they caught several and big ones. So it looks like they're starting to take hold again and hopefully making a recovery.
Al from basson.com from Cincinnati, Ohio is wanting to know why is the bass fishing in Kentucky Lake, he thinks it's been erratic for the past few years. Any ideas if that's been the case?
We've had good and bad reports. It seems like most of the reports we get aren't too bad. I've heard a few people struggling. Right now the weather is definitely not helping things, but I don't know. You get calls every once in a while, but I think in general it seems like people have been catching them.
Mm-hmm. JC from Breathitt County, what is the status of the walleye on Lake Cumberland since the fish kill?
Walleye are improving on Lake Cumberland. We did have a fish kill of striped bass and walleye back in 2000. I think walleye died off in 2009, 2010. Since that time, with the full lake levels, the oxygen conditions in deep water are a lot better. The walleye are doing better. We're going to sample it this fall, but I expect there to be plenty of fish. The only thing we really lack in walleye at Lake Cumberland is large fish, but there's plenty of 2, 3, 4 pound fish in the lake. So I expect this year will be pretty good.
All right, Jane from Lewis County, how many fish species are in the state of Kentucky? This is a bit of a trick question because you've got sport fish and you've got minnow species, and
is it 200 or something? Over 200?
Green River's got a whole bunch
like
just
250
in itself.
or something. There's a lot.
And we have a fish poster that Rick Hill has painted, and quite a few of those, and most of the sport fish you can find on those. Denton from Rowan County wants to know why is it when he fillets his fish, the green flies are showing up? That's an interesting question. I think they fly up.
He's taking too long to fillet the fish. It's like
Dean from Kenton County, he wants to know a little bit about how circle hooks are used. You know, circle hooks have gotten really popular, people especially live bait fishing. So talk a little bit about the difference between a circle hook and a regular hook.
Well, it's supposed to be more beneficial for catch and release, I think, and you don't really have to set the hook on a circle hook. But I haven't really fished with circle hooks. That's about all I know. I know they're supposed to be better for the fish.
Mm-hmm. Doug from Owen County, why is the fishing so poor in Owen County? I'm not sure what body of water he's talking about there, but you may want to call the Department of Fish and Wildlife and ask about a particular body of water. We'll be able to help you out on that. Phil from Bardstown is wanting to know if there's a bounty on fish with tags. Do we have a lake that's got tags on it that we're actually asking for those back?
They've tagged some fish in Green River that may be what he's referring to. I'm not sure about a bounty. You know, there is information on each tag about calling it in. We do want information from the fish, so that's probably what he's referring to.
Okay. Josh from Breckenridge County, where's the best place? He's specifically asking about flathead catfish. He's wanting to know about Nolan, Rough River. Any information, tailwaters, the lakes, any information on flathead catfish?
Boy.
Well, the major rivers are generally good. As far as that part of the state, I'm not sure.
Tell him, well, I can tell you right now. call Rob Rold in the Northwestern District, and he can help him out. The number's in the guide.
More questions about Cedar Creek Lake. Want to know when it'll be back up to full pool? I heard with this rain, it's pretty much there, right?
It was Thursday. I was there Thursday, and it was full.
All right. Fred from Kenton County. He's wanting to know about lakes in northern Kentucky that offer camping that also have fishing.
I think Kincaid Lake's got camping that I know of. Most of our state-owned lakes don't allow camping around them. Kincaid's one of the few. Now, there may be some private lakes that do allow it, but the only one I can think of up north would be Kincaid. It's got state park there. It has campgrounds.
Okay. And that's a good bass lake?
And there's another one up there. Is it Big Bone? I think may have campgrounds up there, too.
Okay. Jeff from Monroe County wants to know, will the slot limit for rainbow trout change in the Cumberland River? Any plans to make
No,
a change
no
there?
plans on changing the slot limit on the river. Now, we do have the new section of the Hatchery Creek that's open now, which is catch and release only, artificial baits or flies only. But no current, we're not looking at changing the regs in the river.
Blake from Clark County, he's wanting to know what's the difference between the spawning activity of a regular bluegill versus shell crackers, as far as time, which one happens first, depth of water, that type of question.
I think generally red ear are a little bit deeper than bluegill. Yeah. The timing's probably about the same, isn't it?
Pretty close, and it's kind of going on right now. The weather's kind of knocked it around a bit. I know some people have been going out west and struggling, but I think they're still in the process, and definitely fish deeper and along the bottom for the red ear compared to the bluegill.
Trey from Boyle County, how's the bluegill population in Taylorsville Lake?
I think it's okay. The big story this year was the crappie at Taylorsville. Unbelievable. I mean, people just absolutely hammered them, limits one after another. So bluegill, I think, are good, but you know, I probably got overwhelmed by the crappie fishing this spring.
And I actually took place
in
the crappie fishing, and we caught bluegill on accident trying to catch crappie.
Did you?
Caught a couple pretty good ones too. Dale from Williamsburg, what's the best time for catfish at Cumberland, and what's a good location, I guess, on Lake Cumberland?
Lake Cumberland has an excellent channel catfish fishery, and I've caught quite a few trying to catch walleye on Lake Cumberland, just pulling a night crawler rig. In the summer, they're out on those mud flats on the main lake. You can load up on the big channel cats at Lake Cumberland. Probably throughout the lake, but I mostly fish kind of the mid portions of the lake, and it's pretty easy to catch channel catfish there.
Danny Madison from Madison County is wanting to know, what is the status of walleye in the Nolan River and Nolan Lake?
Well, they're there. That's a lake we stock. Rob Roll can answer that.
They do okay, and it's not the best population we have in the state, but they're okay.
We're actually talking about going there to do a show coming up in the next 2 weeks. We're getting some reports from some walleye.
Okay, well, good.
Okay, good.
It cycles around, and maybe it's on the upswing, so that'll be good.
Bob from Shepherdsville, Kentucky, he's wanting to know about Hatchery Creek. He's wanting to know, is the project still going on, and when's it going to be finished? Obviously, that wrapped up 2 weeks ago, right?
Right. We had the grand opening, I guess, 2 weeks ago, and had an event down there with the Corps and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and ourselves, and very nice hatchery stream. They've done a lot of work down there. It's going to be a fisherman's paradise. It's a very nice stream.
And is that going to affect the release of trout into the Cumberland River with this new project?
No,
we'll still keep the same stocking rates in the river. It'll get a few fish from above where they stock that upper section of Hatchery Creek, above the new section, and then there's plenty of fish running up from the river into the stream, so it won't affect our stockings in the tailwater.
Robert from Greene County, he wants to know about the muskie size limit, and is there any difference if you're either in the lake or in the river, above or below the dam?
That in our guide that has for the lakes, it'll list, you know, the lake is this up to, you know, this arm and a location. So wherever it lists what it considers the lake in the guide, then it's 36 inches. If it's outside the lake, then it drops down to 30 inches. So they just got to make sure. If it doesn't specify a location, then it's usually the first riffle in the headwaters of the different arms coming in.
Okay. It looks like Carrie Eaton from Barron County. Any legislation that we're considering about the number of poles allowed for spider rigging? I'm assuming this is a crappie fisherman.
Nothing as of now.
I've heard.
Nope.
And wanting to know if they're thinking about reducing the daily limit from 30 to 20. Any talks on that?
We bumped that around a little bit, and it's probably something that, you know, we'll still be looking into. Spider rigging, you know, they do, you know, people think they take all the fish, but they still got to stay within the creel limit. So I think
you can just catch them faster that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom from Bardstown, here's a question that I've heard a couple times. What has happened to the crappie in Kentucky Lake? You talk a little bit about changing
I know
from white to black crappie.
Paula talked about there's a lot of small fish, had some good spawns in recent years, and then they've got some older fish in the population, but there's not a lot in between, I think.
Yeah,
right
they
now.
had some, 2012 was bad, the water never got up the pool, and 2 years before that, it was all over the place, so we had about 3 years of poor spawns. Crappies cycle like crazy, and those things are right where the good fish would normally be, and now we've had a bunch of good spawns in 13 and 14.
So just hold on.
So now
just-
those
yeah,
are the
just
little
wait.
ones everybody's catching, so probably next year, everybody will be getting their limit.
Typically, how long does it take for a crappie to go from, spawn to legal catching size?
Probably
Well,
out there.
we can get 3 years and get them 9 or 10 inches in 3 years.
That's great. Charles and Anderson County, what's being done about the stocking of muskie in the Kentucky River?
We've got we are stocking them in there, and we've also got a project looking at some different types, I guess different sizes of fish that we're putting in to see if one doesn't do better than the other. So we are kind of looking at that in a research project, but we are stocking them in and people are catching them.
John from Warren County, what is the creel limit on largemouth bass at Shanty Hollow Lake? Is it statewide or is it different?
No, I think it's got a special reg, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If any questions that we don't get to
grab
today,
that.
you can pull these up in our fishing guide. Here's the 2016 fishing guide. See, it's got the crappie on here. If we don't have an answer for you, again, you can call our 1-800 number and get that answer by talking to one of our
15-inch size
15-inch size limit.
15-inch size
Pop
limit.
right in there looking at
There you
special
go.
regs and
15-inch size limit, Shanty Hollow Lake. Tim from Campbell County, is there a size limit on bass in private ponds?
It would fall under the statewide, which would be 12-inch minimum size limit.
Mickey from Jefferson County, what happened to the access point near Rainbow Run on the Cumberland River? Not sure about that.
well, we've acquired some property, but I think we've got some property in between that we have not acquired as of yet. So we don't have full access all the way to the river right now. We're still working on that, as we speak. But soon we'll have a full stretch that you can get all the way to the river.
Debbie from Fayette County, do you have to have a specific tag or license to keep trout that you catch?
Yes, you do. You have to have of course, you have to have your regular fishing license, and then you're also required to have a trout permit, which is an additional permit to be able to keep the trout.
Now, that is included in your sportsman's license if you buy
It's
a
included in the sportsman's and also in the senior and disabled license, correct?
Okay. Joe from Harrison, Indiana, are Asian carp a bony fish and can they be eaten? And what are the regulations on how to catch them? I wish Ron Brooks was here for this question.
It would take the whole show, though. Yes, you can fish for them however, sport fish, rough fish, however you like, gigging, snagging. They are bony. They are actually really good. It's a white.
I've tried them myself a couple times. They're actually really good. And I have not tried to fillet one.
It takes some practice, so, catch as many as you want because we want them out of there and keep practicing, but they are good to eat.
Dave from Logan County, where is the best place to trout fish in western Kentucky?
Probably Casey Creek. It's we stock that. That's a seasonal catch and release stream, and does really well. Always got a lot of people there. It's usually a pretty good sign that the fishing is good.
Larry from Bonneville is wanting to know, why do we promote pond fishing, and are we letting river otters loose? That program ended quite some time ago.
Right. I can answer the pond. I mean, most people get their first fishing experience in ponds, and so for a lot of years we've tried to help pond owners make the fishing as good as they can make it in their ponds to hopefully get people interested in fishing, and then they would expand that to then more of our reservoirs and other water bodies.
Michael from Moorhead, what are the regulations for trot lines in Lake Cumberland?
I'm not sure. I don't think Lake Cumberland has any specific. So for statewide, you would be allowed, one individual would be allowed 2 trot lines, maximum of 50 hooks, at least 18 inches apart. And they have to be labeled with their name and address on it, and checked once every 24 hours and removed when not in use.
Okay. Jeff from Monroe, how are the walleye on Barren River, and what part of the river are they concentrated in? This falls under the...
That's the native walleye, yes. Originally we stocked the upper Barren above the lake, and then some of those fish moved into the lake and into the tailwater. Now So they're throughout both
Yeah,
upper
they're
and
actually
lower.
catching them pretty well. There's nice fish down in below the lake. The restoration is above the lake, but it's pretty good fishery in the tailwater now.
Oh, yeah. Duke from Grayson, Kentucky. Are there any plans to stock the large lakes on Peabody WMA with hybrid striped bass?
Nothing
Not that I'm
has
aware
been
of.
discussed.
Okay. You see me thumbing through some of these questions. They're questions we've already gotten to, so I'm going to thumb through some of these. Why do crappies still have eggs in the fall? You seen this before?
Well, a lot of the sport fish will start developing eggs in the fall and through the winter. I haven't specifically looked at crappie, but I'm assuming they're the same, yeah.
Yep.
Chris from Bullitt County wants to know why red ear have the sport fish status but no size limit.
We don't have a size limit on it. There's a 20 fish creel limit, but no size limit.
Rock bass kind of the same way. No minimum, they're a sport fish, but no minimum size limit on it. There's a few species that don't have still considered sport fish and have a creel limit, but no.
Yeah.
I guess the Kentucky spotted bass is the same way too.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Brad from Davies County, are there limits on the amount of bluegill, particularly red ear fish, and are they a sport fish? We just talked about this, and the daily limit is?
Correct. The statewide limit, bluegill are not considered sport fish. They're rough fish, so there's not a daily creel limit on bluegill. For under statewide regulations, on red ear, it's 20 is the minimum, or is the daily bag limit.
And go ahead
They would need to check, if there's fish in a particular body of water or a Fens Lake or something like that, there may be more restrictive regulations on that. So they would just need to check the guide to make sure the body of water they're going to doesn't have a special regulation on it.
Right. Most of our Fens Lake have large signs with the current regulations. So
Which it's 15 sunfish in the Fens Lake.
In the Fens Lake, okay. Joe Brown from Harrodsburg, are there any plans to regulate jug fishing for catfish on any of our lakes?
Not as of yet. I know you hear about them on Taylorsville.
Yeah. I hear about
making
it.
the slalom drive through them, but we've discussed it. We want to make it sure that all anglers have a chance to catch fish. So if it becomes a hazard or something, we will look into it further.
Here's a good question. Gerald from Warren, Kentucky, Warren County, I'm guessing. How do you tell if a male fish from a female fish? I know we just talked about there being this trophy program where
Right.
6 pound for a male or 8 pound for a female.
Right.
Tell someone quickly how to tell that if that fish is a male or female.
Well, it depends on the species. A lot of times the males will be colored up and such. For bass, for the spring, we're telling them if it's got a big gut on it, it's probably a female. But in the fall, we've actually dropped back for the trophy bass program to just say if it's over 7, we'll take it, because you almost have to, and we don't recommend it, but you got to check the vent on the fish to see whether and it's not something you can just look at and tell.
in many species of fish, the female ultimately gets larger.
Mm-hmm.
So once they get past a certain size, you can almost assume it's a female.
Jamie from Lexington, what is the best bluegill lake in central Kentucky? Any ideas of central Kentucky?
There's a bunch of them. Elmer Davis has some good fish. It's got good red ear as well. That might be one for Henry. I don't know. It's a little ways away.
Where's that? Is that?
Briggs is southwestern. It's got good ones. Spurlington's got good.
Cumberland's got good. It's a little south of central Kentucky, but it's got good bluegill fishery.
Corinth, not too bad.
Okay. And Will Green's got some bluegill and stuff there too, right?
Most of them are doing pretty good. We have trouble getting fish above 8 inches in any of our small lakes. So.
Robert from Fayette County, are there any plans to replace the boat dock in Beaver Creek Lake? Well, there's one too. Beaver Creek Beaver Creek is a really good
it's
bluegill
got a lot
lake.
of bluegill right now. They're
Thanks,
not
Robert.
huge. But no, we're not going to replace the boat dock. We're going to kind of fix up the area. We've taken out the old one. We're going to try to do some ramp improvements and just make some better parking, but we're just going to leave we're not going to put a new boat dock back in.
Cody from Rowan County, he wants to know what laws there are to regulate kayak fishing. Now that's getting super popular. Kayak fishing is getting very popular. What laws do we have that regulate kayak fishing?
Basically, we'd have to have a life jacket on board for each person on the kayak. That would be, if there's which obviously most people with kayaks use oars or paddles, so they wouldn't have to be registered to be used. So really, the main one would be the life jacket on board.
Okay.
So
And all the fishing rules and regulations are obviously the same. Doesn't matter if
Correct.
you're on the bank, on the kayak, or a powered boat.
Right.
David from Shelby County, how are the sawguy doing in Gist Creek Lake?
They're doing well. They're over 20 inches now, and we've only been stocking for a couple years. So we've got them in Gist, definitely worth trying. Taylorsville, we just put them in at 1.5 inches last spring, and this spring they're already 12-inch plus, so they're growing fast.
Yeah.
We got them in Bolts and AJ Jolly as well.
And that is a good eating fish.
Yep, yep.
Elizabeth from Bullitt County, how many bluegill can you keep daily? Now, this is a bit of a trick question, too, because some lakes have special regs.
Correct. Like I mentioned before, under statewide regulation, there's no daily creel limit on bluegill. But again, some lakes have special regulations, so you just need to check the guide for the body of water you're going to fish to make sure it doesn't have any special reg.
We're getting a lot of sauger questions today. Jesse from Johnson County said they caught a 21-inch sauger out of Leviza Fork. What is the size that sauger begin breeding?
It's well below that.
Yeah.
Leviza Fork, does it have sauger in it? Or would that be a native walleye?
It could, but we also got native walleye in there, depending on what part of that.
Yeah, that's pretty big for us. That's a nice size sauger.
Yeah.
Someone asking about, Richard from Madison County is asking about Madison County and Will Green Lake. Is it open to fishing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's got good bass, blue cats.
Ed from Scott County, when canoeing down the Elkhorn, sometimes he has to carry his canoe. Is that individual trespassing when he's carrying his canoe?
If he has to get out, carry it through shallow water or has to get out and go around the bank, then yes, he is by law trespassing on whoever he's walking on.
He's saying he's walking in the water, but his feet's on the bottom.
Well, he's still trespassing. As long as he's floating it in a boat, he's not trespassing, but once his feet touch the ground, someone actually owns that bank, and he is trespassing.
Ronnie from Clay County, why are trout not being stocked in, looks like Big Double Creek in Clay County? I'm not.
We used to stock Big Double Creek, and it's one of the ones that we stopped stocking trout in. Part of it was low use, and it's a pretty small stream. And if you don't have a lot of rain events, it gets really small. And so it was between the less use and the small size of the stream, we decided we could better use those trout elsewhere.
Okay. Bob from Charlestown, Indiana, why are there's not as many large hybrid striped bass in Rough River? He's having trouble catching the.
I thought Ruff was pretty
Oh yeah,
good.
Ruff's probably our best. This is an interesting question because when we do our fall sampling, we get tons of big hybrid striped bass. But every summer, we start getting calls, where'd all the hybrids go? So we're trying to work in a research project. It may not happen this year, but to look at where the fish are at during the summer to try to help the anglers out to get them back on the fish. But trust me, when we sample in the fall, there's unbelievable
They're there,
amounts.
huh?
Yeah, they're there.
All right, Pat from Somerset, what's the regulations on trout fishing in creeks?
It depends on what creek it is. You know, and again, you would need to check the guide on that, but most creeks, if it's not got a special regulation, it would fall under statewide, which would be, I'm not sure what her exact question is about that, but I mean, she would need a fishing license if she wants to keep the trout, a trout permit, and then the daily limits, you're allowed 8 trout, only 3 of which can be browns, no minimum size limit on the rainbows, and the browns have to be 12 inches. And brook trout are catch and release only.
Okay.
We have a catch and release
go ahead.
season on some trout streams, or from October through March, you have to artificial base only catch and release. And the idea
Hatchery.
behind that was to try to give them a chance to get a little bit bigger by the time they could be harvested.
And Hatchery Creek is currently catch and release
Only, yes,
only. Yeah.
the new section.
Steve in Hopkins County, what are the trout eating in Hatchery Creek?
Well, there's a lot of aquatic bugs in there.
I
Those
know
pill
if
bugs
he's asking
and
about what to fish with, I
scuds.
know people are using indicators and copper johns and several other below the surface, not dry flies. So, and I think actually some people have been doing real well with a string of 3 flies. You know,
We
in a
ran into
row.
that, a gentleman down there
Yeah,
doing that.
and so that's another thing that's working down there.
Bill in Clay County, what's the progress of the muskie on Dewey Lake?
Dewey, we have stocked for 2 years. This might be the 3rd. They probably are not to the size. We set a new size limit there, 36 inches, so they may not be that big yet. but it's got a couple of years of stocking, so we expect at some point should be some good muskie in there.
Here's an individual from Greene County. Is there a limit on how many fishing poles you can use at one time?
No.
And can treble hooks be used to catfish or for catching snapping turtles?
Yes.
All right. Here's one. Robert from Bath County wants to know the size limit on crappie. He's going to need to know the body of the water he's fishing
Correct.
on.
Statewide, there is no size limit, but several of our lakes and reservoirs have a size limit on them.
Bob from Kenton County is wanting to know if a registered sex offender can attain a fishing license.
Yes. As far as I know, there's no regulations against that I've ever seen.
Chris Jones from Casey County, what is the state's the best month for catching largemouth bass?
Probably for big bass, March or April, I would say, but pre-spawn fish, but you can catch them pretty much year-round.
Yep.
All right, Mark.
What's your best month, Chap, for catching bass?
April. I like April, right before they drop the eggs. As far as weight goes, obviously. Yeah. But big fish, I like to fish them in the winter. That's my favorite time to fish them. So, Mark in Bell County, is there any programs to help you get a new lake started in the neighborhood programs? Can the public kind of help facilitate
They can call in. Just call the 1-800. What is it?
858-1549.
Can't remember our own number. And ask for Dane Balsman. He's kind of manages the Fens Lakes, and he'll put it down. We have some kind of requirements of size and amenities and things and depth and everything else. But if it fits, we'll definitely look at it. We don't have room to add a ton of them, but if it's a good one, we'll definitely look at it.
Mm-hmm. If it's close to people, that's
yes,
that's the
and
most
that's the main
important
thing. Yeah,
we really want it to be close to the population. Linda in Bath County, is there mercury in Kentucky waters, and how many fish can you eat each month? I know this is...
Yeah, this year they've got new consumption advisories, and what spawned the changes is they've started testing a bunch more lakes and a lot more fish species, and the testing's got a lot better. So there's a statewide mercury that's natural, and so we've got advisories, and they break it down now by predatory fish, panfish, and bottom feeders. And so if you're fishing for panfish or bottom feeders, bluegill, crappie, any of the rough fish, it's 1 meal per week. Mm. And if you're fishing for predator fish, bass, muskie, things like that, then it's supposed to be 1 meal per month. And that's just a statewide advisory.
You gotta be a pretty good fisherman to have to worry about it though, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Lucy in Henry County, what's going on at Benji Kimmin Lake? Is it gonna be restocked, and what's being built there? And any updates on how the fishing's been?
They are putting in a new ramp there, trying to work with the water levels, so that it should be done pretty quick. The latest samples there, it started out real hot, but the population is pretty average, from what we're seeing. So we are stocking catfish. We will stock bass if they have a poor spawn. Mm-hmm. There's some other lakes on there that have some other good panfish fisheries, in those smaller lakes there. But it's got good fish, but it's not as spectacular as it started out.
Travis from Hardin County is wanting to know if there's any group of people that do not have to abide by state creel and limit. I guess he's referring to potentially, it says here, Amish people or Native Americans.
No,
not that I'm aware of. No, everybody's got to follow the same rules.
How big can a rock bass get, and what is the state record?
Well, we can look up the state record. I'm guessing 4 pounds or something like that.
Ask another one, and we'll.
And I don't know if he's talking about a rock bass or a rock fish, but how big they can get, we're not sure. We'll get you that answer in just a second. Bernie from Campbell County, how can you tell a 6-pound largemouth is a male or female after the spawn?
After the spawn, come the fall, I guess February, in the spring, it's going to be pretty obvious with the females, but in the fall, we're just going to go ahead and, for that trophy bass program, take fish that are over 7, because it's just going to be really tough to tell.
Yeah.
Rock bass state record is 1 pound, 10 ounces.
1 pound, 10 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay. John from Whitley County, why have we not stocked red ear sunfish at Laurel Lake?
I think we did years ago. some.
They like vegetation. Does Laurel have a lot of
It
vegetation?
doesn't. It has very little vegetation. The only vegetation that it really has is actually an algae called muskgrass or cara. That's the only one I've seen. But they do better in lakes that have vegetation. They feed a lot on snails, and so if you got a lot of snails, it's usually good for red ear.
You'll be fishing 200 feet deep in a lot of Laurel Lake too.
Yeah, if you get 5 feet off the bank, you're in 100 feet of water.
Robert from Todd County, what are we doing about Asian carp on Kentucky and Lake Barkley?
We're doing a bunch right now. We've done some work in Washington and got some more federal funding, so we're putting that towards removal of fish and prevention of their expansion. But we're also working with the Fish and Wildlife Service and USGS to work on some new technologies to try to see what we can do with those. They're actually going to do a big harvest below McAlpin in Louisville this year with several of these groups and look at like using sound to herd the fish and then try to collect them. And then we got all the processors out there, and we're trying to work with the commercial fishermen and the processors, get that communication going so we can up the amount of fish. I think they took out over 1 million pounds last year, mainly out of Kentucky and Barkley.
Wow. I know we were 80-something thousand pounds in a 2-day deal that the department did, yeah. Harlan County question, how are the lake sturgeon doing in Lake Cumberland?
Doing pretty well. We're about year 9 or 10 of a 20-year restoration plan on lake sturgeon. We've stocked the Cumberland River below Cumberland Falls and also on the Big South Fork side. I know our biologists have sampled. We've actually seen a lot more fish on the Cumberland Falls side. They sampled, I think, a winter before last and caught like 50 on trot lines. And some of those fish are getting, 3 feet long or better. So it looks so far so good, but that's a long-term project. It takes them a long time to reach maturity. So it'll be, another 10 years before we really see if we've got a good population established.
If somebody catches that, they're going to think they caught a prehistoric animal, aren't they?
They are strange-looking fish, that's for sure.
Mike from Jefferson County, he said he caught a walleye in Taylorsville Lake. He wants to know if that was a native species or one introduced from the Rockcastle River.
That's our sawguy. Guarantee it.
Yeah,
guarantee it.
It's so that is a sawguy, which is a hybrid species.
Yeah, and they look similar to the walleye, so they could be confused pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it's 15-inch size limit, so just make sure they're there. They're probably not there yet at Taylorsville.
All right, Don from Bullitt County, have the red ear and bluegill at Kentucky Lake spawned already?
I think they're still in the process. It's obviously the weather has kind of gunked it up, and I think several of our guys took some vacation and went down, and they did not do very well last week, but I think it's not over yet, so keep trying at least. Hopefully we'll get some stable weather.
Don in Boyle County, has the state stocked Green River with black crappie?
We have stock crappie in there, but I'm not sure. I would assume it would be whites that we've put in there. There may be some, just naturally occurring in there.
All right, Ray from Estill County, how many crappie are you allowed in a day?
Under statewide regulations, 30 crappie per day.
All right, Ed from Barron County wants to know what lakes that we put black-nosed crappie in. I'm not really sure what black-nosed crappie is.
It's a color variant of a black crappie. It's got a black stripe down the head and back. Years ago, we stocked them in Laurel Lake to try to see if we could get a better crappie population there. We stocked them for 5 or 6 years, and I guess we've stocked them in some other places.
I think Carr Creek Lake's got them. Taylorsville may have got. I'm not sure about Taylorsville, but and then out west, I think we did several years of stocking out in Kentucky Barkley.
All right, Christopher from Jackson, Kentucky. What is the limit of black and striped bass? Obviously, we're talking about 2 different species of fish here.
Yeah.
Well, the statewide limit on striped bass is 15 inches, 5 fish, but Cumberland, it's 2 fish, 22 inches.
Mm-hmm. And then under the regular largemouth, smallmouth, Kentucky and Coosa bass, it's 6 singularly or combined, meaning they can have 6 of one species or 2 smallmouth, 4 largemouth, whatever. But it's 6 total out of those 4 species of bass.
Okay. Eddie from Brandenburg, discuss why the shad population is low in the Ohio River. Are you seeing this?
It probably changes, by the year. I'm not sure I haven't
I would
heard a
think
whole
it's
lot about it being
Usually really good.
yeah, being down, but it may be down. It may be cycled down. It could be flows, changes in flows, turbidity, whatever. But I'm not sure.
Kim from Russell County, what has happened to the white bass in Lake Cumberland?
That's a good question. We do have some white bass in Lake Cumberland, but it's not. I wouldn't call it a good population. We did stock white bass in the early 2000s for 5 or 6 years running, and we just we got a little bit of a bump in the population, but we never seemed to quite get over the hump. I think it was a little bit better when the lake was down. You had more riverine section of the Cumberland River. If you're going to fish for white bass, I'd stay on the upper end of the lake toward the Burnside and the two Big South Fork and Cumberland River, but down lake we just don't have them.
All right, Corey from Knox County, is it possible Laurel Lake has perch in it?
Yes. I guess somebody's gone around to several of our lakes and stocked yellow perch. We've seen some in, I believe, Laurel, Lake Linville, Wood Creek Lake. I've heard of even some out of Cumberland. Our creel clerks have had some people say they caught some yellow perch. Really? But I haven't seen them yet from there. But yeah, they're showing up in a few places.
And I'm guessing we probably want to discourage stocking of any fish in any of our lakes.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of questions about Laurel Lake here. They must have known you were going to be here, John. Shaw from Knox County. Will there ever be hybrid bass stocked in Laurel Lake?
I knew that question was coming.
If we keep getting yellow perch, we'll have to stock them.
I've had several calls about hybrid striped bass being stocked in Laurel, and some people wanting them, and then I've had a lot of other people that didn't want them. And I always say, when somebody calls about stocking a fish, I always say, well, we'll consider it and think about it. But before we stock any extra predators, we'd have to study that. And right now the fisheries are going pretty good at Laurel. The largemouth fisheries is best as it's been since I've been down here, and we've got trophy smallmouth. They can be hard to catch, but they're there. So we don't want to do anything to to mess up the fishery we have right now. But we'll look at it in the future.
One of my favorite lakes to fish.
Yeah.
Alan in Shelbyville, how is the walleye and sauger mix doing in Jeff's Creek Lake? I'm not familiar with that. Are you guys?
Creek. Gist Creek? Maybe
Gist Creek. I bet
that's where we're putting. They're doing really well. They're over 20 inches, so you can definitely take those home.
Okay. Shannon in Jeffersontown, is it safe to eat fish in McNeely Lake? Any particular species have concerns in McNeely?
Yeah, I think it's got, you've got the statewide advisory, and I'm not sure if it's got a special advisory on it or not. Check that, but if it has an advisory, it still will let you take fish. It just may limit the amount that you eat per month or week or whatever, but I know McNeely has some advisories on it.
And we're getting tons of questions. Thank you for calling. Any question we don't get to, you can probably find the answer in our hunting and fishing guide, or you can call us at 1-800-858-1549 at the Department of Fish and Wildlife and ask our information center. David from Shelby County, how are the smallmouth doing at Taylorsville Lake? That's an interesting question.
It's not really, smallmouth, kind of a cooler water species. They need that cool water during the summer, and Taylorsville just doesn't have it. So we do get reports of a few of them coming out of there, but it's not a lake that's going to produce smallmouth.
So they're probably running up in the river to catch those, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would guess.
Freddie at Nolin is wanting to know, is it illegal to snag shad below the Nolin Dam?
I'm not real familiar with the regs on Nolin, but there is a snagging season, and it is actually ended now. It was, I believe, February 1st through May the 10th. So snagging season is out regardless of the species.
Okay. Joe from Adair County, is there Asian carp in Green River, and what is being done about it if there are?
Yeah, pretty much any water that flows in the Ohio River has got them. Kentucky River, Green, all of those have Asian carp, and we kind of covered, what's being done. But yeah, they've run all the way up to the base of Green River Lake. There's not a ton of them, but they have made it up there.
Here's a question. Gilman from Louisville, Kentucky is wanting to know what the problem is with Nolin Lake being so low and wants to know what we're doing about it. That's something that happens every year, and that's a core lake.
Yeah, and that's a core lake. A lot of it has to do with flood control and different types of water management. So that's completely out of our control. If they have questions, they can call the core lake manager to find out.
Carissa from Jeffersontown, Kentucky. wants to know if they can canoe in any lake. Are there any restrictions that does not allow you to canoe in the lake?
Not that I'm aware of or that I've seen.
What about below dams? What's the restrictions on canoeing below dams?
I work the area more Kentucky River, so on there you can actually canoe up, take a boat up to the dam on the low side of the dam. But if you're within, I believe it's 150 feet, you have to have your life jacket on. Everybody in the boat or canoe, whatever vessel, has to have a life jacket on.
Okay.
Just be very careful.
Yeah, yeah, especially if the
practice
water's
any
coming
time on
over.
the
I mean,
river,
I wouldn't
yeah.
recommend it right now. The water on the Kentucky's flowing pretty good with all this rain, so I wouldn't want to go anywhere close to that.
Richard from Boston, Kentucky is wanting to know why we're not stocking sauger at Lake Cumberland. This is a size question issue here, right?
Right. Actually, there are a few sauger in Lake Cumberland. We probably catch 200 walleye every sauger we see, but in our nets. But there's a few sauger in there. But you know, I think it's a better lake for walleye. Sauger are usually more turbid water, more river system type. You know, Kentucky River, Ohio River, more suited to turbid water.
Bill from Odom County, has the 10 horsepower motor limit been lifted on Elmer Davis Lake?
You got to go, yes, it has been. You just got to make sure you're at idle speed with boats over 10 horsepower.
Another question about trespassing. If they're in a float tube and they accidentally bump their feet on the bottom, they're trespassing.
Yeah, they are. But
All right, James from Jefferson County, if you own a canoe and you put a trolling motor on it, does it need to be registered?
it does if you use it in public waters.
All right. All right, Nick in Owen County says he thinks he may have caught a possible state record. If he catches another, how does he need to get it verified?
He needs to first take pictures. He needs to get it weighed on a certified scale. On our webpage, I think we have an application for that, and because he'll need some witness signatures. So take it, get it weighed, certified, take pictures, and then call it the local biologist, and so they can come out and identify it.
Okay. Jonathan in Bullitt County, how can you tell the difference between an alligator snapping turtle and a regular snapping turtle? I noticed that.
Yeah, it's a difference on their humps in their back.
Yeah, their
right?
humps in their back and stuff. And actually, in our fishing guide, there is a picture of a regular snapping turtle and an alligator snapping turtle that shows you the difference of it.
Charlie from Bullitt County is wanting to know what part of Beaver Creek are the bluegill biting.
Beaver
Creek. Maybe.
Well, there's a Beaver Creek on Lake Cumberland. I don't know if that's what he's talking about.
Okay. Yep.
Beaver Lake, everywhere. You can't go anywhere without catching bluegill.
Yeah, there's a lot of Beaver Creeks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cave Run's got a Beaver Creek.
So Russell from Laurel County, how did the stocking program for black crappie go on Laurel Lake? Did we do a black stock?
We did years ago. Like I say, we made a little bit of a bump in the population, but really not enough to justify the stocking, so we discontinued that. Laurel's, there's a few crappie in there, but I don't think it'll ever be a great crappie lake. It's, too steep and infertile probably to be a great crappie lake.
Here's a question wanting to know about hybrids of catfish. Wanting to know if we're going to stock catfish, and are there any crosses between blues and channel catfish, and are we doing any catfish stocking on Nolin, Barren, or Rough River?
I don't think we're doing any catfish stocking in Nolan, Barren, or Rough. We do stock them in, a lot of the smaller state-owned lakes, and actually there is a cross between the blues and channels, and some of the Finns lakes have actually got some hybrid catfish in them. So for the Finns program.
Okay. Heron from Boone County, what are the current regulations on using an umbrella rig in Kentucky waters?
There's no restrictions on it. I know some states have restrictions, but there's none in Kentucky.
Ed from Mason, Ohio is wanting to know when the stripers are going to be restocked in Lake Cumberland.
We stock them every year. They'll be stocked probably in June, late June, early July. About 2 inches long. We stock usually 350,000 or so.
Charles in Lincoln County, is there a place to drop off used fishing line for recycling?
Yeah, we're actually starting up a new program. There's a little picture in the guide about it, but we're trying to expand. There are those PVC tubes, and they have a little cap on them, and you can shove the line in through them. They're not everywhere as of now, but we are actually starting to look for sponsors that would build them. They're real cheap to build, and then go empty the line. And then there's you can either send it to certain locations or take it into our district offices, and they'll send it off to be recycled.
That's great. It's much better in that recycling tubes than left in the lake, that's for sure. Yeah. Betty from Perry County, how big is Drake's Creek, and where does it start and end? Anybody familiar with Drake's Creek?
No, I'd call Eric Cummins. I think that's Eric in the guide, Southwestern District, and he can answer that. I have no idea.
Brad Sturgeon, Spencer County, what do the bass do when the water is falling? Boy, this is a magical question right here. Somebody asking about suspending fish, or what do they do when the lake is falling?
I don't know.
They get off the bank.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a Chad question there. You can end the show on that one, couldn't you?
How much time we got? How large will a yellow perch get?
I've seen them probably 14, 15 inches. I guess they'll get a little bit bigger than that. I'm not sure.
Well, thanks for all your questions tonight. We're winding down the show. We're going to answer as many as we can and finish up trying to get as many of these questions as we can get to. Do we have any plans for a boat ramp in Stoner Creek in Bourbon County? Anybody know anything about that?
I have not heard of anything. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't put one there, but I haven't heard of anything right now.
All right, is it legal to run a gas motor on Wilgreen Lake?
Yes, it is. It's idle speed only on Wilgreen.
Is 3 hooks legal below the Wolf Creek Dam?
3 hooks.
I'm not sure what they're talking about. Treble hooks are obviously legal, but I'm not sure what they're asking about there.
That's probably what they're asking, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say
probably
so.
treble hook.
Yeah.
All right. What is the frog limit per person?
It's 15 per person, and that's a noon to noon.